Hi everybody, this is Shri. Welcome back to my channel Vedic Living. Today we'll be talking about the Nakshatra Punarvasu because we are back in our Nakshatra series right now. Before we go any further, I want to remind you my website www.vedicliving.com. Please sign up for my free newsletter, which I send out every month with a lot of predictions. And also while you're there, check out my articles and other things that are on my website. Okay. All right. So now let's go forward with Punarvasu Nakshatra. Now, Punarvasu Nakshatra literally means return of the light because it comes right after the nakshatra called Ardra, which we talked about last time, which was the symbology of that was darkness. So one of the things with Punarvasu Nakshatra, they call it the comeback nakshatra. Think of it, that's the simplest way to remember it, because people who have this nakshatra, they go into very deep difficulties in their lives, but there are these huge comebacks. They become big names after going through these problems. Now, one of the things with Punarvasu, it does rule fame, it rules money, luxury, but again, people who have this nakshatra, they don't have that desire for it. They don't have the greed for it. It's all about doing good in the world with these natives. But it rules fame, because here's the irony: when you don't chase the money or the greed, you automatically get all of that, right? The irony is that you don't want it at that point. So the Punarvasu nakshatra is considered a very positive nakshatra. It is ruled by Jupiter, which is the largest benefic in the sky. So these people have a great talent in areas of metaphysical studies, spirituality, and renewal. Remember, I said this is return of the light. So this is about renewal. This is about making things new again. So you will see that people who have this nakshatra, they have an interest in renovating old things, old homes. They renovate old homes. They fix up old things. They bring ancient knowledge back into the present. They are all about bringing new life or breathing new life into things that are old and lost to us, but they'll bring them back into life. So that's the thing with Punarvasu Nakshatra. Now, the symbology is the quiver. And a lot of people say it's because, when you think of a quiver, think of an arrow that, once it's used, it has to come back. The symbology of this nakshatra is the quiver. So when you think of the quiver, think about coming back home, right? Because the arrow, even though you take the arrow out, you use it, but then you put the arrow back into your quiver. So that's an important symbology of this, because it's again kind of telling us about the comeback. But here's another understanding of the symbology. The fact that it rules a quiver and arrow can also mean that people who have this nakshatra have a great love for travel. Okay. And they do like to, just like the Ardra nakshatra, they like to be physically active, but at the same time, they have this thirst for knowledge, because that's also about the quiver and the arrow. Now, there is a lot of purity associated with this nakshatra. If you think about Ardra as darkness, think about Punarvasu as light, white, pure white light. Okay. And a lot of goodness of the heart. People with this nakshatra, they cannot think a bad thought, because they are always trying to do the right thing, be just, be good to others. Now, the stars that are in this nakshatra in Greek mythology is Castor and Pollux. Those are the twins in Greek mythology. Now, but in Indian mythology, when we talk about the stars in Punarvasu, I think it's a binary star system, because there are two stars that they typically talk about. It's Puna, which is one star, and Vasu, which is another star. In Sanskrit, the word Puna means again, once again. Okay. And Vasu is the name of Indian deity. Now let's go into the story and mythology of this particular nakshatra. The Vasus were 8 sons. They're considered the 8 sons of Aditi. Now, what happened was, they are considered to be very knowledgeable, very spiritual. And one time they were walking in the forest and they saw a cow in the distance. And all the brothers told the oldest brother, Prabhasa, who was the oldest Vasu, to go and steal the cow. And he did. But unfortunately, the cow belonged to sage Vashishta, and he was not happy about this, right? So he comes out of his ashram, finds out that his cow is stolen, and he curses the Vasus, all 8 of them. He curses them to take a mortal form and be born on this planet. So the Vasus become very scared and sad, and they start crying, and they tell the sage to have mercy on them and to forgive them and to take back his curse. But he says, once a curse is uttered, it cannot be taken back. But he says, you know what? I feel bad for you. I know I said that in the spur of the moment. So I will try to make it better. So he kind of adds an addendum to that curse, saying that you will be born, all 8 of you will be born as the sons of goddess Ganga, who's actually the symbology of the river Ganges in India. And she will make sure that you get your moksha as soon as you're born. So as part of the Mahabharata epic, what happens is Ganga takes on an avatar where she marries King Shantanu. And, they start having children. So the Vasus are one by one born to her, to Ganga, as her sons. So Ganga had already taken a promise from her husband, the King Shantanu, that I'll only marry you if you promise me one thing. You will never question me or any of my actions ever. You'll never stop me from doing anything. You will never question me. And if you ever do stop me, or if you ever do question me, that will be my last day with you, because I will have to leave. So the king, of course, he didn't know what he was agreeing to, right? So he agreed to that, and he gave her the promise. And then many years later, they start having babies. And of course, these 8 Vasus are born to goddess Ganga, one by one, right? The first one, the second one, and so on. And each time she gives birth to a child, one of the Vasus, she takes the baby in her arm, she walks to the river Ganga, and she drowns the baby. And she did this the first time, the second time, the third time. And the king would follow her to the river, but he couldn't say anything, because he had promised that he would not stop her, or he will not question her, and he will trust her judgment in what she's doing. Now, Ganga is having to do this to the Vasus only because she had agreed to free them of this mortal life. She had agreed to free them. So that's why she was doing this. This was one of her spiritual contracts. They did not want to be in the mortal form, imprisoned, and she was freeing them. So she drowned the first baby, then a year later she had the second one, she drowned the second baby, and so on and so forth, all the way till the 7th baby. Then she was pregnant again with the 8th child. And this time the king could not take it anymore. When the baby was born, that was the reincarnation of the oldest brother, Prabhasa, the Vasu. So she holds the baby and starts walking towards the river to free him from the mortal form. And the king, who could not take it anymore, stopped her and told her, no, she can't do that. And of course, she was very sad, because she said, "Oh, king, you have no idea what you did here, because this was my spiritual contract with the 8 Vasus. I had to free them from this mortal form because they were cursed by sage Vashishta. And you have stopped me from freeing the 8th Vasu. And now his life is going to be torturous, because he has to live that curse. He has to live this entire life through all the difficulties the human life has to offer, and he has to finish his curse. So then she leaves the child with the king, and she leaves because she had, that was the promise, right? That if he stopped her, she would have to leave. So she left. Now, this particular Vasu, and again, going back to the nakshatra Punarvasu, right? The coming back. He had to live or in the mortal form, and he grew up to be known as the great warrior Bhishma. So this is the mythology behind Punarvasu Nakshatra. It's all about, and Bhishma was known for his righteousness, for the goodness of his heart. He was known for his valor. He was a warrior, and he always wanted to do the right thing. He in fact is known for his own promises that he made to his father, right? So this is the symbology of Punarvasu Nakshatra. Now, another thing that I also want to talk about is people who have this nakshatra, they live very simple lives. And again, go back to thinking about Bhishma being the 8th Vasu, right? Even though he lived in the palace, he always wore white robes. That's the simplicity of life that he preferred. And another thing also is, they have less desire for anything. Bhishma Pitama, he never married, he never had kids. There's a less desire. It's all about the work, the karma, the action. That's what they're more concerned about. So this is a very positive nakshatra called Return of the Light. It does have to do with comeback in life. A lot of people who are celebrities who've had tough times, who go into drug addictions, you will see later on when they make a comeback, if you look at their chart, you'll see that they have moon or some important planet in Punarvasu. Okay. So that is my take on the Punarvasu Nakshatra. I hope you like this series, and make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you next time.